So this is all you need to have fun. A sweet flying plane, good equipment, and a pretty day with no wind. Okay? There you see my receiver, and the dual antennas. One you stick out one way, and you stick them out at right angles to make them work better. Now, some beginners will try to learn on a Piper Cub or a Cessna. Problem with those planes are that they are scale planes. The tail is going to be a little bit on the small side. The second problem is that instead of the wing being near the center line of the fuselage, the wing is up above the fuselage because it sits on a cabin. And the problem with that is that when you try to fly the plane fast, the wing creates drag and it'll make the plane want to climb. And so you'll be constantly trying to adjust your trim on the elevator, and even the plane will sometimes, the tail will bounce back and forth a little bit, and that's kind of annoying. This ugly stick is a lot better design for a beginner. Now, the only problem I had with this reactor is that the original color scheme is turquoise and white, and I tend to lose that in the clouds or in the blue sky, so that's why this, you see this is a custom paint job. You just do this with spray cans of enamel and masking tape. Roll rods set up, and it's very easy to set these up, and they work great, and there's no slop in them at all. The other thing is that movable tail wheels, steerable tail wheels, are pieces of junk and they break really easily, so you want to just take a wedge of plywood and glue it on the bottom of the fuselage, and then run a piece of piano wire into a hole on the front of it and run it out the back through, you know, you can put a groove in there with a moto Dremel so it's glued in really securely, and then a little bit hanging out the back so you can bend that tail wheel so it tracks straight. I'll show you how simple it is to charge a battery. Plug the charger in, comes on, defaults to NiCad batteries, so press this button 3 times to get it to LiPo. If you need to reset the number of milliamps, you just press this button quickly and you roll the dial to the milliamps you want. 2200 or 3200 is what I do. I've got the charging lead hooked up to the little board. The little board is different for a different type of battery. I use Electrofly, so this is the Electrofly board. This charger comes with 2 boards. Hook up the balancing lead. This is actually the discharge lead on the plane, but it's a balancing lead on the charger. The balancer is built in, so you see 3200 flash, and all I have to do now is hold the button in and it's charging. Checks to make sure the leads are on, and the fan comes on because it is a 3200. If it was only a 2200, you wouldn't hear that fan come on. It's kind of an old charger. I've had this for several years, but this is the best one. Remember, a computerized charger takes it easy on your batteries. It charges at 3.2 amps for a while, but then after the battery starts getting charged, it slows down to like 0.2 amps for that final trickle bit. It only takes a half an hour to charge a battery. If the battery is not, if this thing doesn't ring telling you the battery is fully charged after about 45 minutes, it means your battery is getting a little old. Just unplug it. You've got 90% power, so it's good enough to use to fly, but you don't need to wait another hour for that final 10% to go into that battery, because it probably won't remain in that battery anyway. It'll probably sort of leach out over a period of a couple hours. So just give it a half hour to 45 minutes and your battery is pretty much fully charged. You get about 150 flights with a new battery at 100% power and then another 150, the battery would be a little bit older and it'll only give you about 80% power. And I only do 11-volt batteries, so you can see what the battery was pretty well discharged. Down to 11 volts is discharged. Usually full charge is about 12.6 volts. So it's charging at full power 3.2 amps, and it'll tell you how many minutes it's been charging. It's a really nice battery charger. It's about $160, but you can get discounts, so you can get another $20 or $25 off. You can see the engine mount on the Ugly Stick is real easy. They give you pre-drilled holes. There you see the ESC. I use 45 ESCs on the big planes and 35s on the small. The setup for the servos is the old style with the Ugly Stick, with the servos being back here, and I've got the radio there, old FM radio. What's the advantage of using control rods is that the servos are away from the antenna, so I can run the antenna all the way down the middle of the fuselage and there's no interference. With the 2.4 gigahertz you wouldn't have that problem, but with the old FMs it's better to keep the servos away from that antenna. Now a good place to buy from is a outfit like towerhobbies.com, because they always have stuff on discount, and just buying through an internet website will give you 30% off, and then you get additional amounts of money off, $20 to $25 usually on every order. So I recommend that you buy from a place where you can save a lot of money. I generally fly planes that are from 35 inches to 48 inches because they give you the best flight characteristics for your money. A smaller plane doesn't fly very well, especially if there's a 5-knot gusty wind. And bigger planes, you need like 14-volt battery packs, which are getting kind of expensive. So here you see the Sportster. That's a good plane to buy for a beginner. Here is the Ugly Stick. That's also a good plane to buy for a beginner. Plus, both these planes you'll be happy to fly them for 3 years at least. In fact, I still fly the Ugly Stick. It's really fun to fly, and it flies really well. Stay away from the foam planes. These are also the best planes to fly. This is the Sukhoi, the Edge, the Yak, the Reactor. They fly really excellent. Remember, we fly electric because it's so easy. You just flip a switch and it's on. Gas is very noisy, makes an incredible racket, and it's hard to start those gas engines. So that's why we fly electric. And you can get there's programs that you can get that you can put on your computer, and you can fly it like like you're standing on the ground, the plane is in the air, which other flight simulators you're in the plane looking through the cockpit, but this flight simulator that Tower sells will be one that is third person, so you're on the ground seeing the plane in the air, which is what you need to practice with. Okay, see all the discounts they have, and I would go with something from them. You'll get it in the mail in 5 days, and a lot of times the postage is free. Now it's almost imperceptible, but that engine does point down slightly and slightly to the right to counteract the torque of the propeller. Otherwise the plane would want to climb and turn to the left. When putting your control surfaces on and almost ready to fly, that's about all you have to do is put your control surfaces on. You use a little tiny piece of fibrous cloth as the hinge, and it looks about like this, and stick it in first into the slot that's pre-cut just to make sure that it's free, and then put a little bit of crazy glue on it and slide it in and make sure it's lined up, because remember, crazy glue will dry pretty fast. Then you have all the hinges sticking out the back. There'll be probably 6 of them. then don't pre-crazy glue the actual elevator surface, because it's hard to get in all those little fibrous pieces of cloth in the slots, and it takes a little time to do that. And then you've got to line it up left to right, and you've got to make sure you got a little bit of a gap in there, otherwise the glue will dry and freeze the elevator. And then once you get it set up the way you want, just push it down a little bit and put a drop of glue on the fibrous hinges, because it will wick in there. And then give it 10 minutes to dry. And if you want, you can flip it over and do the other side also, and then just test it and make sure that it's you can pull on it and it won't pull back out. All right. And then the amount of throw on like an elevator is not as much as you think. That's all the throw I have on this control surface. So don't overdo it, because you'll over control the plane. And the other thing to remember is that these radios, modern radios, hold the information for 6 different planes, so that you have 6 names on here. This one says Siren, because that's another plane of mine. And all your settings, the amount of throw and everything is held in memory, so you don't have to keep resetting planes when you use the same transmitter for different planes. This will hold memory for the amount of throw and all your settings for trim for 6 different planes. And then you also have this switch here, which is kind of convenient, because especially with a warbird, you don't want much throw on those control surfaces when you're flying 60 miles an hour, because you don't want to do too tight of a turn or too tight of a loop, because you'll lose speed. So this switch here is a setting on these radios that will increase the amount of throw for a landing, where you need more throw on all your control surfaces, so that at slower speeds you still have control over the plane. And then once the plane's going, you flip it over, and it limits the amount of throw, so that you don't start over controlling the plane or doing turns that are too tight. And here you can see the action of the elevator. So the transmitter will reverse servos if they're going the wrong way, and when you build a plane, and then it will allow you to change the amount of throw also a little bit with the servo. But now with the modern transmitters, you don't need to mess with the servos so much. Just get them centered, and that's all you need to do. And remember what it sounds like when you arm that engine. 1 beep means it's not armed. 3 beeps means it is armed, so it's ready to go. Don't get cut by a propeller, because they can. You can go to the. You'll have to go to the ER and get a bunch of stitches. So be very wary of these propellers. All right. If you shut the transmitter off after you land the plane, remember that while this battery is hooked up to this engine, you could have an electrical glitch, especially if you use an FM transmitters. And that engine could suddenly come on. So, you know, when you pick this plane up, make sure you're aware of that propeller could spin till you disconnect this battery.